on this Saturday afternoon. We're very happy here to launch another of our lifelong learning sessions. This is a program that we have taken forward this year as part of an initiative of giving inwards to alumni, a program where alumni share their experiences as well as programs that they have, so that they can then become, courses and learning material for other alumni. We're very, very privileged here today to have here with us Venkateswaran from Insights AI to bring today's session on a very upcoming topic of AI. Welcome to you, Venkateswaran. He comes from the batch of 1996. The first thing he said was he's from C batch. He's from Alak, which is also where my own batchmates resided, and from chemical engineering from the batch of 1996. Welcome, Venkateswaran. Thank you so much for bringing this program for the alumni. Over to you for today's lecture.
Thanks, Shyamala. And thanks, Rakesh and the entire IIT Madras Alumni Association team for giving me this opportunity. I myself have been associated with IITMAA for more than 20 years now. In 2003, when I was in Chennai, I was the General Secretary of the IIT Madras Alumni Association Chennai chapter. And then subsequently, I went on to also hold a position in the executive committee, right? So it's an added privilege to be contributing back to IITMAA through this webinar series. And without much ado, let me go ahead and present my screen, share my screen and start. So Rakesh or Shyamala, if you can confirm that you're able to see my screen, I can get going.
It is visible, Venkat.
Okay,
yes,
okay. And one more confirmation that you're able to see me and hear me clearly.
Exactly. We can.
Excellent.
We can.
Rakesh, do we need to pin him some way so that he's already on
pinned.
Okay,
pinned
perfect.
Okay. So let me just start off. This is going to be a very, very informal session, right? I don't want to, introduce any jargon, anything about, some of the latest words from AI, etc. I'm just going to keep it simple and most importantly, very interactive, right? So let me, without further ado, start off with a teaser. Okay. So let me ask you, what problems has AI solved so far? Right? You can start typing on the chat window, which I would be observing. We'll start with what problem AI has solved so far, and follow it up with what problems have still not been solved by AI. And I also see from the registrations that a bulk of the batch is from the recent graduates from 2024 batch upwards till 23, 22, 21, all the way till 2019. And also, interestingly, I see students right from the batch passing out in 2025, 26, 27, and all the way to 28, which means I also have some fresh IIT Madras students in the group. So I would expect them to participate more, right? So let's start with what problems has AI solved so far. Kaustubh says to connect patients with doctors and hospitals worldwide. Great. So something in the healthcare space, right? So we've got a tick on healthcare. Any other problems that it has solved? We can look at probably other functional areas other than healthcare. Yes, Ani is talking about winning games of Go, chess, etc. There was a big competition recently, a few years back, between a champion from Korea and Google, right? Google's machine learning algorithm, and the machine learning algorithm was able to beat that person, right? And it became a big news. Yeah, Dr. Subramaniam says a very simple thing, a basic thing that AI does is it automates a lot of tasks and processes, right? From all your regular weekly, monthly reports, dashboards to manufacturing processes, everything it automates. So simple tasks and processes, that's a great use case, Dr. Subramaniam, of AI. Srinivas Rao says, handwriting recognition, image recognition, fantastic. Great, Srinivas Rao. So when you talk of image recognition, right, what's the first thing that comes to mind, right? Images of what in the healthcare industry? Any use cases? What comes to mind when we talk of AI and keywords like confusion matrix, true positive, true negative, false positive, false negative? So when we talk of image recognition, and we can imagine a doctor holding an X-ray, right? So what's the first use case that comes to our mind when it comes to application of AI in the healthcare industry? Excellent, Arvind. Writing blogs, reports, presentations, cancer prediction, Srinivas Rao, bang on. And Lokesh says fraud prevention. We'll go through all these use cases: fraud prevention, supply chain optimization. Yes, Shiak, what you're talking about, classification, is a technique that we use in machine learning, right? What we are talking about now is what are the problems it has solved, right? Classification is a technique. So Shubham, what he says is correct: weather forecasting, anomaly detection, fault diagnosis from process data. Excellent. Let's move on to the problems that have still not been solved by AI. Dr. Subramanian, we'll come to that also. Synthetic data or enhancing data, right? Yes. Excellent point, Lokesh. Personalized learning, which is a pet topic for me because our company Insights AI is completely into personalized learning and coaching programs. Let's talk about problems that have not been solved. Any thoughts, ideas on problems that have not been solved? Srinivas Rao says decision making for scenarios which no data exists. That's correct. For training models, if there is no data, then AI models are of no use. It cannot solve the problem. Yeah, great point, Dr. Subramaniam. Again, bang on. Ethical issues, right? So AI, for example, does not know what is moral, what is immoral, and most importantly, what is amoral, right? It is amoral, it is neutral. It doesn't know what is, ethical judgment, Lokesh, correct. Emotional issues, it cannot take into consideration things like what are some of the emotions that are associated with human beings, right? It just acts on data. And we'll see examples associated with each of the points that you guys mentioned. But before we proceed with those examples, let me take a small quiz with this forum, right? With this, IIT JEE passed out forum, right? So the question number one is, who is credited with coining the term machine learning? Any takers? Lokesh, correct. Bias, fairness, fake news, info, common sense reasoning is another great point, Dr. Subramanian. Abdul, exactly. Okay. So Kaustubh says, Alan Turing, Dr. Subramanian says, most people seem to be saying that, right? Srinivas Rao says A. Interestingly, I don't think any of us have got it right. It is Arthur Samuel is credited with coining the term machine learning. Alan Turing actually is known as the father of, computing and artificial intelligence, right? But the actual person who is credited with coining the term machine learning is Arthur Samuel. That's correct, Lokesh. 100 marks to you. Let's move on to the next question. Which company created ChatGPT? Yeah, that's a no-brainer. Lokesh has returned. Srinivas Rao, all of you are correct. In fact, I think that the whole forum is correct. There is nobody who has missed out on this. OpenAI, right? Which is not a competing product of ChatGPT. B, yeah, that's again a sitter. I think for most of this forum, GitHub Copilot, most of you may have used Microsoft 365. You can subscribe to it, $10 per month. Powerful tool. GitHub Copilot can help you code with comments on Microsoft Visual Studio in any language. You can take Java or Python or Visual Basic Script, VB Script, JavaScript. So also, but Pulsar is something that is not known. It's not a known generative AI, ChatGPT kind of not a competing product. Good one. What about which of the following problems can be solved by AI? Srinivas Rao says all. I'm curious to know how Srinivas Rao says all. For example, Srinivas Rao, if you can type in how it would solve A, thought to speech. It would be interesting to know. Speech to text and vice versa, text to speech is something that is known, but option A, thought to speech, is something that I don't think it has ever entered the realm. In fact, there's a problem that is currently being grappled by all AI researchers across the globe. It's called the hard problem of consciousness, right? Because thought has its origin, at least from the Eastern philosophy point of view, in consciousness and awareness. And the hard problem of consciousness is something that, across the globe, AI researchers are trying to grapple with. Yes, Lokesh Kumar, you are correct. See, face recognition is something that Arvind, the B is not correct because it can only give indications of this. It cannot solve the theft of credit card. It can only identify fraudulent transactions in credit card or give some alarms, alerts, indicators, but it cannot per se prevent the theft, right? Therefore, the only answer that fits the bill here is face recognition. Good going. Okay. Now, let me move on to the next slide. I'll start with the fascinating field of AI, right? The problems AI solves. Some of the problems that AI solves are language translation, which most of us use in Google, right? English to multiple Indian languages and foreign languages. So the first one is language translation. The second one, some of you already mentioned, fraud detection in banking, financial transactions, insurance areas, across multiple domains. Fraud detection is something that AI solves. The third one is about, detecting cancer, diseases such as cancer in the healthcare space. And the fourth one that we already spoke about is the face detection, right? Face detection algorithm, something that AI and machine learning solves, right? Now, it helps us deeply understand the workings of the human brain because the entire machine learning and deep learning subject is concerned with neural networks, and neural networks are all about, mimicking or simulating the workings of the human brain. However, some of the problems that it cannot solve or where it struggles, hallucinates, as they call it in the industry, is first thing is common sense. For example, you give a prompt saying that, say Shyamala went to Adayar Anand Bhavan, Shyamala ordered ghee masala dosa, right? And she tipped the waiter a hefty 100 rupees. Right now, if you ask ChatGPT, what did Shyamala eat? It would not give any answer, right? Because we have given 3 specific sentences. She went, ordered a masala dosa. She gave a hefty tip. But a human brain, which has common sense in between, would infer. Inference is one of our characteristic traits. So that's one of the drawbacks of AI, that it does not have common sense. It cannot infer that if somebody has tipped, they have tipped because they already ate that masala dosa or whatever. Second thing is thinking ethically, right? A couple of years back, there was a huge uproar in Twitter when Microsoft released one of the chatbots, right? And they wanted the chatbot to be interactive, very interactive with the Twitter users. Unfortunately, it resulted in a lot of hate messages, feminism, and it was not able to respond properly because it didn't know what is moral from what is immoral, right? That's why I say AI is amoral. Therefore, ethical thing and ethics in AI itself is such a huge subject today, right? It does not have the morality, or it's amoral in that sense, right? Third thing is about continuous learning, right? Human brains can retain what we have learned, right? We can retain what we have learned and also input new information and connect the dots between what we already know and the newer learning that we are having, this continuous learning, this cycle of new knowledge, then it becomes a skill, and then it fosters our growth. This cycle is something that people are trying with reinforcement learning and stuff like that, but it's still not very well established in the domain of AI, right? Now, in this fascinating field of AI, what does someone typically who is still a student or was recently passed out and within the first 10 years of their career, what can they expect, right? How do I engage with this new AI in the field of AI, right? One of the ways is that it enables engagement as a consultant. One of the things that one can become is you can become a consultant to federal bodies, government bodies. Example, if you look at websites like Deeper Insights, ICF, these are all forums where you become a consultant to government bodies, federal bodies, etc., right? And also Ernst & Young is majorly into AI, right? Ernst & Young is completely creating a unit, a function, or a division which focuses on AI with businesses, right? Or you can also, one of the great possibilities with AI is that you can become an AI entrepreneur, like any of the people that you see on the screen. These are all the big names in the AI entrepreneur list today. The first guy is somebody known as Dr. Shiv Rao, right? Dr. Shiv Rao is Pennsylvania based, and he runs this company called Abridge. Now, what does Abridge do? Abridge actually works with doctors in the US, with clinicians as they are called, and it helps them with documenting all the paperwork that's required once they see a patient, right? So it's the provider-patient interface which would do all the regulatory framework, all the documentation, etc., that is required post the consultation with the patient, right? So it's reducing the product, it's improving the productivity of doctors and reducing their time spent on documentation by up to 80 plus hours per week. 70 to 80 hours it's reducing per week, which is a huge productivity boost, right? Similarly, if you look at this company called Harvey. Now, Harvey, what it does is that it's in the space of legal. So if you have legal suits and then titles, all these things, Harvey caters to the needs of more than 10,000 lawyers. And again, similar to doctors, they are all time pressed, right? So it researches all the use cases, title documents, drafts, contracts, finds legal precedents, historical similar cases, identifies, and then documents and provides them a ready document to look at the cases and move the cases fast, right? Again, these are all heavily funded. Abridge is 212 million funded, Harvey is 106 million funded. Mistral AI is another interesting company. This is the rival to OpenAI from Europe, right? And it's France-based. Again, funded heavily, $527 million funding. Again, valuation is huge. Funding is 500 million. Current, their valuation is 2 billion plus, right? They are direct competitor to OpenAI. Then there is another interesting company that I came across. It's called Pika. Again, started by some Stanford grads. Their CEO is this lady, Debbie Guo. What you can do here is that this is a video on demand platform. Basically, you can create videos of any and everything by providing prompts, and then it comes up with that fascinating video, right? Of the prompts based on the use cases that you provide on the prompts, right? So these are all some of the new age entrepreneurs who are making it big in the Forbes list, right? Now let's look at current state of AI, and then we can go into an interactive mode on what opportunities are there, especially for youngsters. And interestingly, one of a very senior alumnus also came back to me before the conversation and then asked me, hey, I'm from the 70s, early 70s batch, and then I need some inputs on what are some of the free downloadable software that is available. And then I told the IITMAA Association that I'd be happy to have another webinar series on what are some of the free downloadable software, etc., that we can use for building AI and machine learning algorithms. But if you look at the current state of AI, some of the notable scientists are Alan Turing. All of us would have heard. Anybody knows what this Turing method is, right? What is the Turing effect? Let me open the chat window. I'm somehow, yeah, let me. Yeah, the Turing effect, right? It's named after Alan Turing. What he has conceived of in the early 50s is, exactly, Lokesh, can computer think like human being, right? He put machines, computers in one room, and then he put human beings in another with just a text-based chat interface, right? And in Turing methodology or Turing effect, what happens is that a third-party neutral observer, that's a human, would interpret these chat transcripts between these two and should be able to identify whether it's the machine which is churning out the chat or it's the human being, right? So he fundamentally started off the research on can computers think like human beings? So he's one of the fathers of modern artificial intelligence. Then we should have heard of Geoffrey Hinton, who started this deep learning. He's the father of what are known as ANNs, or the artificial neural networks, right? That's another big name in the AI and ML space. And of course, Sam Altman, he doesn't need any introduction. But if somebody wants to tell more about Sam Altman other than he being this thing, welcome. Yeah, Lokesh. I've heard of this Y Combinator, which is, I think it's a Silicon Valley-based venture funding organization. But I think Sam Altman is also now associated with some of the green energy companies and stuff like that, right? Any other, interesting facts on Sam Altman, I'd be happy to hear from the forum. I know about green energy. Lokesh has spoken about Y Combinator, which is a Valley funding organization, a venture capital fund. He has left Y Combinator, is it? Okay. So these are all some of the interesting, notable scientists. Now, if you think of the research areas in AI, right? Speech recognition is obviously one area where there's a lot of effort that is going on, right? Speech to text, for example, in YouTube videos, when we look at the text that comes up, right? The text is still not fine-tuned. The text is hazy. Sometimes it flows sideways, especially the closed caption, CC, right? It's not very perfect. It doesn't center itself. The words are mumbled. So there's a lot of research that is happening in the linguistics area where people are trying to find out, especially during live conferences. Say, for example, Chinese, a Hindi-speaking person, they are listening to Australian natives speaking Australian English in a live conferencing forum. How do we go about, putting closed captions on videos, live conferencing, whereby everybody would be able to see it in a language of their choice, right? Natural language processing, that is one area where there is a lot of research that is happening. Then, of course, we spoke about earlier about reinforcement learning, right? So reinforcement learning is all about back propagation and how do you take feedback loops into consideration and look at, enhancing the quality of the output, right? So that is one area where, unlike humans who retain most of the information that we learned, the retention part is one thing that is being worked upon in the reinforcement learning area in machine learning, right? In terms of careers in AI, right? I would like to sort of, make this interactive because my whole view of AI and ML comes from the fact that, you can map it to late 80s and early 90s with the IT services industry, right? And in the IT services industry, much like how it was 25, 30 years before, right? A lot of new career options are emerging for people who are starting their careers, right? For people who are early in their careers, students, final year students, people who are just graduated and who are early on in their careers, right? So if you map it in the software industry parlance, during that time, for example, I passed out of IIT Madras and joined Infosys, 1996, right? So in Infosys, we had 2-3 options when we joined, right? We went through a mandatory 3.5-month training program, and then you learned a plethora of skills there, like databases, SQL database. Then you did a courses on some on mainframe. There was no very specific specialization, but post the 3.5-month training, you would be put onto a project. And that project could be anything. It could be, a Y2K project. It could be a web-based project in Java. It could be an active server-based 3-tier architecture project. So that's how the evolution happened there. And pretty much, I'm sure in the AI area, as companies come to campuses and start hiring people, they come up with titles like, broadly, there are 3 groups here, right? Which I have experienced in the last 15, 20 years of my experience in this industry. One is the data part of it, the data management as one pillar. So you would need strong skills in databases, ability to SQL queries, ability to pull lots of information, terabytes of information from large data warehouses, right? That is one aspect. So if you're good in databases, we need data analysts in that role, right? Data engineers, data analysts, that's one role. The other role is more on the business side, right? Somebody who can be a business analyst, ability to understand the business, good communication skills, ability to talk to the client, engage the client, translate the business requirements into requirements, document, use tools, frameworks, etc. And in between these two, data analyst and business analyst, you have titles like machine learning engineer, data engineer, right? Data science, data scientist, data engineers. So machine learning engineer would be somebody typically who would master key ML algorithms, frameworks, programming skills in Python, R, etc. should be strong. And most importantly, working on practical ML projects, right? Time permitting, I can cover the slide on, practical aspect. I can't emphasize, the importance of practical aspect, right? For example, when I was a student in IIT Madras, the first course, computer science, CS 101 in semester 1, it completely baffled me. I didn't come from a computer science background. I didn't do computer science in my 12th. And it was not an apple to apple, right? There were 2 physics lecture theater and chemistry lecture theater. So 180 students in physics lecture theater, 180 students in chemistry lecture theaters. There's a big group. About 20-30% of the population already had exposure to computer programming in their 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, whatever, about 70-80% still didn't have. So it was, though you could know the algorithm, putting it into code, and given the time pressures there, the limited time slot, like half an hour or 1 hour, you get in the computer labs. And I'm sure by now with the laptops, with the students, I think all those issues would have been sorted out. But during our time, it actually created a big, a wow or a resistance to computer science, which I overcame much later, right? Therefore, in Insights AI, the first thing that I do is that what I call as, we don't do stack ranking. Right? We never do stack ranking with our students, because in my opinion, the moment you start creating the stack ranking position, then the whole intrinsic motivation to learn a subject is automatically gone. And at Insight AI, we're very, very particular that this intrinsic motivation, which is a function of 3 things. It's a function of autonomy that you give to the students. You have to give a lot of freedom to explore, play around with this, right? Autonomy. Then second thing is mastery. How do I enable mastery of all these things through hands-on practical exercises, like for example, Python notebooks with steady commands, enablement through GitHub Copilot and stuff like that, right? Practical examples. Then third thing is autonomy, mastery, and purpose, right? What's the purpose for which I'm doing? And in other forums, in other colleges, I keep emphasizing this point, especially to students and people early on in their careers, that if you don't like math, if you don't like computer science, please don't take the effort to get into this field just because your neighboring room guy is doing it, or just because, I'm a chemical engineer. I spent 4 years in IIT Madras, but all around I saw people getting into the software industry, and I got into that industry at that point in time, but only to realize after struggling for the first couple of years in the industry, you get grounded. That is when I went to IIM Lucknow to do my MBA with a very specific focus on information technology, systems, marketing. And then I got back into the industry, right? So like that, I would encourage all of you, out of machine learning engineering, natural language processing, AI in domain, what do I like? For example, if I'm an oil and gas guy, I'm a chemical engineer, I'm a textile guy, right? So I would rather go into a core industry where today, in this industry 5.0 is catching up. I myself consult for a textile machinery industry, right, in India. And I put so much of domain specialization into it. So unless you are a chemical or textile engineer, you won't know what happens inside the machine. And therefore, there are a lot of possibilities in core areas also in building careers in AI. That is one point that I want to emphasize. And I say that more so because last year I have been helping IIT Madras partly in terms of placing students, etc. And I know the pulse of the students. Some people from core branches who have studied proprietary software in, for example, in thermal engineering, in mechanical engineering, chemical engineering, they came back to me and said, Venkat, I've done such and such software. I've used that software in my department. Do you think I can do AI? And my answer is a straight no, right? Because this field demands a certain different kind of interests and passions, which I will cover. But broadly, I would categorize it as, if you are more on the business side, go become a business analyst. If you are more a techie and love programming, etc., become a machine learning engineer. If you want to be more in between, right? If you want to sort of understand the business requirements, translate the business requirements, and take the help of a data guy and then a machine learning engineer to put together, the entire thing using tools like data visualization, right? Visualization is another area that is very, very hot today. If you know how to use tools like Power BI of Microsoft, ClickView, Tableau, right? All these things, all of them do not need deep coding, but what happens in today's industry, for example, you need to know a little bit of coding. In Power BI, for example, you need to know what is known as DAX code, data analytics code, or M code is also associated with Power BI, right? So those are for people who think, hey, you know what, I can't sit in front of a computer and program for 8-10 hours. And, so I will pause here. These are broadly the three areas. And I will go to the chat window and open up the forum. We have half an hour. Let the next half an hour be completely interactive before I move to the next slide. And people, especially from the younger batches, right, 0 to 10 years of experience, probably I would say 2015 batch upwards, could be the ones who could, open up and then ask me, hey, queries, clarifications. Because we have 2 more webinars, and I'll be going deep in the next webinar next Saturday. So before that, I want to, do the foundations intact. So I'll wait for, questions, clarifications on the chat window. And parallelly, while you are doing this, you can look at the screen where how do we navigate an AI career right from the word go is something that I've put up on the screen, right? Yes, Sriram Chandramouli, yes, I will share these slides with the Alumni Association office. I will have a conversation with Rakesh and we'll be happy to share. No problem at all, right? One question I want to ask Rakesh on the forum, right? We have decided on chat being a better way of communication, but Ravi Kumar wants to speak.
I have given him access to speak. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely, Ravi, over to you.
Thank you for this session. So I don't have much of a background in ML. I come mainly from the science background. I have a PhD physics and all. So when we solve engineering problems or science problems, the usual approach is, okay, there is some let's say some data we have. And then we try to understand what is the science that is explaining, and then tweak the hypothesis and these things. How much of that thinking exists in ML problems that are solved through ML approach? Is it always like, okay, I change the neural network architecture, I change this model, and just get the solution done? Or do people really think about, okay, what's happening? What are the patterns? What is the science behind it? Is my question clear?
Yes, Ravi. Very, very interesting question.
Yeah, thank you.
Right? The answer to your question depends upon what level you are in the organizational hierarchy, right? Obviously, the purpose of ML is not just to come up with some regression models or multinomial models, right? The purpose is to solve a business problem. And therefore, you're bang on when you say that the first and the foremost thing that we do is we have consulting. For example, when I'm consulting for this, chemical company or textile company, right? The first multiple times, a lot of time out of 6 months, 4 months are spent in defining the problem, understanding the domain thoroughly. Framing the problem is very, very important, and coming up with the right data, right? You'll be surprised to know that about 80% of the time we would only be spending in gathering the data in terms of structuring the data together. It could be, does the data really solve the problem that I'm trying to solve, right? And once the biggest challenge there is to frame the problem correctly by understanding the domain deeply. Once you do that, doing the machine learning model hands-on. That's why I said at what level. If you are an entry-level machine learning engineer, it's a piece of cake for you because you don't care two hoots about whether the data is from banking industry, insurance industry, or from manufacturing industry, or oil and gas, or healthcare. You don't care about it, right? Because the techniques that you would use, the regression techniques, or NLP, natural language processing techniques, text to speech, all those are standard, right? But at the end of the day, the output or the outcome should make sense, and therefore there's a lot of effort that we spend in the industry in terms of piloting, right? I can quickly give you a small example. When I was working for Dell, we were doing this media mix modeling, right, which is for the advertising department. And the advertising department initially was very, very hesitant. They were very resistant to bringing in machine learning models. But we had to talk about the power of machine learning. To put it very simply, the problem was if I have $100, where do I spend the $100? Currently, it was $60 were spent on TV. About $20 in newspapers, and the remaining $20 were in online forums like banner ads, etc. Right? And they were very, very wary of changing that model. Therefore, we had to pilot it. And data gathering also is a big challenge there because what the department has, when you look at the data, it may not necessarily make sense. In this case, I got what is known as sell-through data, right? What I was looking was for sell-out data. That is, sell-out data means from the retail outlets. Since it is a laptop company, the laptops that were sold out of retail outlets like Chroma, that is the target variable, or the Y value as we call it. That was the information I needed from the retail outlets. So their exploratory data analysis becomes very important. For 2 to 3 months when I was doing exploratory data analysis, the third week of every month there was a big peak when you do the line graph in Excel. So most of the time we would still spend in Excel trying to figure out what the data patterns are. When I went back to the department, that's when the wow moment came, saying that, look, this third week is when a truck comes from my warehouse somewhere in Sriperumbudur. From there, the truck starts and reaches Bangalore, during the third week. That is why so many and then we came to a point where after 3 to 4 months of exercise, we realized that's not the right data. So you are absolutely right. Defining the business problem or defining the challenge and looking at the right data takes up a maximum amount of time. Let me take Dr. Subramanian's question. Dr. Subramanian, can AI replace core engineering disciplines? Yeah, thanks, Ravi. Thank you. Dr. Subramanian, I don't think AI can replace this thing, Dr. Subramanian, because if I take 20 years back or 25 years back, 1999, 2000, when Google came up with the search algorithm, very different search algorithm compared to Ask.com, Jeeves.com, AltaVista.com. You had n number of search engines at that point in time, but Google came up with their own search algorithm, which was very different from all of them, and then they became the market leaders, right? So at that point in time, the same question came up: oh, can Google replace any of the existing? The answer is a big no, right? Because core engineering disciplines are here to stay, right? AI is just an enabler, right? AI I call as co-pilot. For example, in my recent engagement, for the field sales engineers who are going to the customer for orders, right? They have a list of leads with them, marketing leads or sales leads, if you will, right? And when they take the sales leads, they use certain queries, about 5 queries with 20 points each to look at, hey, out of 100, if it crosses a cutoff of 60, I would change the lead to an opportunity. And then with the opportunity, I would go to the customer. And they needed a dashboard on the field to show them whether the lead is worth pursuing or the opportunity is worth pursuing to convert into an order, right? And this is applicable across any kind of core engineering industry. So our machine learning algorithm will only give the lead number as well as a 0 or 1 on whether the lead is worth pursuing or not pursuing. We left the judgment, business judgment, to the field sales engineer, saying that you use this as a co-pilot, as a support, right? Because what we call as false positive, that's a very dangerous thing. In the confusion matrix, we have to ensure that the recall value is close to 1 or the false positives are minimized, right? Therefore, it could be an opportunity. The algorithm may say that the opportunity is not worth pursuing, but in fact, the opportunity may be worth pursuing. That's a false positive. So we want to minimize that. Therefore, nobody can 100% say that it can replace. It's only an enabler. Yes, Sriram. It can replace the subparts of core engineering. Yes, definitely. Thanks, Dr. Subramanian. So these are all some of the things. For example, when I built my career, right, I was in the US. I started off in the US initially, and subsequently, when I shifted to Chennai, the first thing that I did was I went to IIT Madras. I spoke to a lot of senior alumni from the first batch, 64 batch is the first batch. One of my mentors at that point in time was one Mr. S. Srinivasan, who was running SRA systems in Chennai, right? And he was the one who set up the computer science, the entire lab, computer science in IIT Madras. He was the one who set up, he had a job from IBM, and then I think he left that job to be an entrepreneur, right? So when you network with people like that, at one go, you would consume or get information that you would take otherwise about 3 months to read, right? Therefore, attending industry meetups, forums, connecting with professionals. And at this juncture, I would again like to appreciate all the effort that is done by the IIT Madras Alumni Association team, Nishani Manohar, then Rakesh, and Shamala and others who are in the forum. I think this is a great forum, right? And if you look at the branding itself, I myself built a personal brand in the industry by networking heavily with the IIT alumni, right? It's full of, currently, the consulting organization that I work with is again started by IIT Madras alumnus, right? He's a professor in IIM Bangalore, he's a professor in ISB now. So we have great people if only we take the initiative. And I would encourage especially the people who are younger, and please don't hesitate. I spent a lot of my weekends when I was very young, rather than going and eating out or joining my friends in social gatherings, I started organizing IITMAA events. I organized one Carnatic music event. I organized, financial planning event by one of the very core financial planners during that time in a hotel in Chennai. So these are some of the things which will give you experience and exposure, which will come handy in your career, both not only in technical skills, but more to shape up your personal and build the personal brand, right? So you have enough and more mentors. And yes, continuous learning is the thing. As recently as 2 years back, I learned, I did a lot of certifications because the field is already evolving, right? And I would say the fundamentals are there with all of you, because the fundamentals are matrices, determinants, probability, statistics, linear algebra, coordinate geometry. If you know all these things, machine learning is just a cakewalk for you. And with your background and having cleared a tough exam like IIT JEE, where there is so much of a rush in my apartment even today, right? I'm sure all of you are very well positioned for AI-based careers. Right. I will not, harp much upon these. All of you know about this project management, communication skills. Just I will take about 2 minutes now to, introduce about my company, while at the same time, I would encourage all of you to keep putting in your questions on the chat window, right? My motivation for, I had about 25 years of experience in the industry, and then I came out of corporate as the head of analytics, data analytics for HighRadius, which is again a company started by an alumnus of IIT Madras. Right? It's valued at about 3.5 billion or 4 billion now. So my motivation was that I wanted to cut across this stack ranking phenomenon, because one of the things that I found in both in IIT and IIM was this intense competition and craziness, which resulted in a lot of mental pain for a lot of people, right? And I addressed that pain owing to the stack ranking system that we have developed, right? Though it has its merits, I felt that just using a JEE rank as a as a proxy for determining what you want to learn or what you want to do, or which department you get into, is not a wise move, right? That is the advice I would like to. Please don't do that, or advise your youngsters, brothers, cousins, sisters who are coming. Don't do that. And Professor Kamakoti also emphasizes a lot on that in all his talks, right? That's not the way. It took about 6 years of experience in my career for me to realize that I was good at databases, I was good at business frameworks, I was good at primary, secondary market research to get authentic data. And therefore, a function of authentic data layered on top of a right technology platform, and you analyze it in structured business framework, is what insight generation is all about. So it took 6 years for me to get there. I wouldn't want any of you to wait there. If you can get it in the first year of your IIT B.Tech course or M.Tech course or PhD program, I think you would cut short your career path, unlike people of our generation. So that is my strong, humble request. And also I would urge all of you to think along those directions, right? So we only do industry relevant courses. We don't believe in, it's all practice sheets, question papers. So it would be a real life problem. I would put it on a Jupyter notebook or in a Microsoft Visual Studio. I would help you with a Copilot. And then it would only have comments on the notebook, right? And you would straight away get into solving the problem rather than breaking your head on, what does, for example, the syntax. We learned what was called Pascal, which is no longer in vogue. So when we learned Pascal, most of us, because of the brains of IIT, could solve the algorithm. You give me a 4x4 matrix and put some numbers there. I know how to do a magic square out of it. But then implementing it using code took a... Today, you have so many enablers, right, to debug the code. During that time, it was not there. You have to burn a lot of midnight oil to get there. And I feel that is less of importance in today's age where no code, low code is the vogue. So our training programs are always focused on what we want. And I say that because in my last organization, when I was leading a huge team of about 200 people, youngsters from 7 tier 2 premium colleges in India, one of the things that I saw among youngsters was sustainability beyond 1 year, 1.5, 2 years. You don't have the bandwidth to kind of sustain this space because it's intense. Let me tell you, it's intense. Therefore, if you want to survive in this industry beyond 1-2 years, you need to prepare early on. You need to have the toolkits. You need to be mentally and physically have the bandwidth and the energy to solve problems, because entrepreneurs of today are very impatient. Given the funding, the valuations that they are pegged at, it's a crazy industry, right? So I see in the startup that I work, I see other startups folding up left, right, and center every 6 months. So my caution to all youngsters is choose wisely and be very, very prepared before you get the industry. Well prepared is, or well begun is half done. Now over to the questions for the last 15 minutes. McKenna, does an entrepreneur need to be proficient with deep learning algorithms? No, not at all, McKenna. Entrepreneurship is all about, identifying an unmet need in the market, right? And coming up with a solution to that unmet need. It has nothing to do with your coding skills or technical skills. So answer, entrepreneur does not need to be proficient with any algorithms. To be an entrepreneur in AI, you should be a businessman. You should be able to keep your eyes and ears open and then see what is an unmet need or demand in the market. And all the 4 entrepreneurs that I showed you, right? They only solved unmet need or demand in the market, right? In the field of healthcare, doctors, that person has seen that doctors are spending about 15-20 hours per week only in writing, documenting, which is a waste of his skill. Legal professionals, lawyers are spending a lot of time writing, documenting in Word and all that. So AI solved that problem, right? Hope that answers your question. Shubham K, how valuable is a PhD for pursuing a career in AI? That's a very interesting question. My answer is it's not at all valuable, right? See, PhD today, my belief system in today with all my pedigrees is that a formal education is not really required in today's world. Because in my apartment, I met, and even in Bangalore, I met a lot of youngsters who are dropping off at the school level itself, right? Very, very bright people and pursuing different paths because somebody wants to do economics, somebody wants to do Python coding. Therefore, unless you want to pursue academia, unless you want to go to a PhD is valuable if you want to, if you are in the top 10% in your class or top 20%, you want to do a PhD from a Stanford or one of the Ivy League university and pursue a career in academics. right? Most people who have become entrepreneurs, businessmen, startup-preneurs, serial entrepreneurs they have dropped off at the MS stage. MS was also not required. I felt that those 2-3 years was a waste of time, right? The earlier they got onto the idea and then started implementing the idea, the better it is. Thank you, Vasudevan, sir. So the core principle on which we operate is value matters and values matter. Let me elaborate a little bit on that. Value is what I provide you when you pay me the course fee or the course content, right? And value creation or value definitely matters, right? But more than the value, what we look for in Insights AI is values. Because if you look at companies that are long-term, companies like Infosys, their tagline says something about values, right? If I recall, powered by intellect and driven by values, right? That's why that company is doing so great today, right? It's a very intangible thing, values, right? But if the values are not in place, the world will soon find out and eject you. Therefore, Amazon, for example, right? In the late 90s, Jeff Bezos actually, during a Christmas season, in order to meet a consumer demand, right? He drove around in his pickup truck in his locality and bought his own products from retail outlets, right? And to fulfill the demand, online demand that he got during the Christmas season. So in India, think about any entrepreneur who would go buy his same product at a premium and sell it at a discount in his own company, right? But that was the value system that they had. And I think that's what sustained them for so long, right? So that's the core principle which we operate. Value matters and values matter. What do? We equip you with only practical skills. For example, all the time spent, effort, energy spent in doing the basic degree is useful, builds you certain generic skills. But the moment you get on to the industry, you have to constantly keep learning on practical skills because especially AI industry keeps changing, right? With all the chat GPT, co-pilots coming in, practical skill, prompt engineering. I would advise all of you to learn prompt engineering course today itself. That's going to be very hot, right? That's the one which gives you premium placements. Then I don't believe in stack ranking because one of the things which puts off people also is that in colleges and universities that I've visited in India, they display the ranks or grades publicly on the notice board. To me, I've also advised or encouraged some of the people, management, not to do that because I myself have felt very bad because all of you have struggled hard and cleared a very, very tough exam, world-class exam to get into IITs and stuff like that. So avoidable is to stack rank and let everybody explore what they want to do. And all of you, I'm sure, would hit great heights if only you introspect and figure out what you want to do. Right. And I say customized training because my training, I divide a class into, it's an A-B training kind of a thing. There is a grade A and people with grade B, but we don't announce who is grade A and B. It's A-B testing. So for the B group, we would try to encourage them, motivate them, and then get them to move to the A group. So what are the learnings from a cohort of, say, if there are 60 A and 40 B, what can we learn from the 60 who are into A? And how can we take those learnings and have improvement opportunities for those who are in category B? That's all we can look at, right? And focus is, there is a yawning gap, right? What universities teach us is what I call as static intelligence, right? It is very, very static. And what we need today, it comes under the purview of cognitive psychology. In cognitive psychology, what is known as dynamic intelligence is very, very important. You go to an organization, you should be able to have flexibility. Most of the CXO level people, if you analyze today, right, they all have what is known as cognitive flexibility, executive functioning, right? Executive functioning requires continuously taking decisions on the go and pivoting, taking decision. As a new technology comes in, how do you pivot and survive? That skill is very, very important. Creativity, executive function. These are all some of the skills that you have to develop. That is what we enable you with real life work environment, and we position you for the right kind of jobs. Yes, in the last 10 minutes, Dr. Subramaniam, do you think artificial superintelligence can handle ethical and emotional issues which AI is unable to process? See, there are a lot of research, Dr. Subramaniam, is going on in the area of ethics, and that's a very gray area, right? And there is a lot of research that is happening in that area as well, right? But IITians, one of the names that comes to my mind is one Dr. Srinivas Padmanabhuni, who was with Infosys earlier, and now I think he's with IIT Lucknow. He does a lot of work on ethical AI, right? It's a gray area and worth pursuing. But it comes back to the question of hard problem of consciousness, right? Has AI cracked the consciousness problem, right? If you want more information, since you are from the senior batch, I would also recommend, Swami Sarvapriyananda. He is the Vedanta Society of New York president, and he has a series of YouTube lectures which are very popular. And he's he's an expert in psychology and cognition. So if you refer to his videos on hard problem of consciousness, he would address this ethical issues that AI is bringing in. He exactly addresses this problem in some of those videos, so worth looking at them. Yes, McKenna, thank you so much for your inputs. We have the last 5 minutes, so let me see if I have any further slide there, right? So these are my coordinates. I run batches or courses in platforms through my classmates, friends who run EdTech platforms, right? I have worked as, faculty come advisory with a lot of EdTech firms all through my career, right? Because teaching is something that I was always fascinated with. I started off as a, part-time CAT coaching for IMS and there's a company called Triumphant Institute of Management. I used to take quantitative aptitude, which was my core strength. And then I pivoted to some larger training companies, right? And I used to do this courses, PGP courses in data sciences, in machine learning, etc., covering supervised learning, unsupervised learning, and then deep learning, TensorFlow, PyTorch, and all that. Right. So we have a finishing academy program, and when I visit other tier 2 colleges, one of the things again I want to emphasize to this forum, especially the young students in IIT, I would encourage you not to put a big value on the salary numbers, right? See, when I go to tier 2 colleges, tier 3 colleges, right, I see the excitement. They're not blocked by this 15 lakh job or a 20 lakh job that I have to hit. That is not there. They are still at, a 5 to 10 lakh kind of job. They're very happy and they come with a lot of passion into this industry. I appreciate that, right? So again, my humble request to all of you, don't put that. It is important, of course, as IITN's premier institute, #1 institute in India, you've got to get #1 salaries, undoubtedly. The society expects out of it. But I would prioritize it on the lower thing rather than what is the area that I want to get into and then build upon that, right? The first 5 to 10 years are very, very crucial, and do not do too many changes in your companies. Every company is more or less, they operate similar way, right? So I do finishing academy programs for tier 2 institutes, tier 3 institutes. One of the inputs again I want to give you is that please do not take the entrance exams that these companies give on the campus lightly. A lot of people are not, if they are struggling with the aptitude tests. So I run some, programs to polish the aptitude tests also, because unlike I think 25, 30 years back, where we didn't have too much of support systems or tools or online methodologies to crack aptitude tests. For example, when we were giving our aptitude test in the IIT Madras campus, TCS, Infosys, Wipro, and Cognizant, these were some of the companies which used to provide this filter, right? So my learning after crossing, we used to no preparation. We have to directly go and write, because what will you prepare? You already crossed a tough exam. But what I'm seeing among students today is that the concepts are not in place. The fundamentals are lacking. So I go and reinforce some of those fundamentals, right? Rather than taking recourse to shortcuts like, a train comes at speed U, another train comes at speed V, they collide, some 2U, V by U plus V, some formula. Instead of that, I think what they trick you into are thinking into original problems, right? It won't be the regular ones. So again, our finishing academy program, interviewing skills, communication skills, these are all very important in sustaining in the industry. So please stay focused, and I'll be happy to, you can connect with me in any of this email, or you can check my websites on some of the classes that I've taken. So for IITians, we haven't done any specific batch, but if any of you are interested, I'll be happy to take your queries. So I have stopped bang on dot at 5 p.m. Shamla. And
I think there's one more question from Sanyal. You want to just take that or?
Yes, I will take that. Yeah, I have all time. I think, yes, Sanyal is there. I have a direct message from Sanyal. And before that, there is also a message from Sanyal again. Yes. Thanks, Lokesh, for that feedback. Sanyal, people in the financial industry are still skeptical about the use of AI. Yes, Sanyal, that's a very important point. So like I said earlier, right, I myself have worked in the financial service industry. High Radius, for example, is into providing autonomous solutions for Office of the CFO, which is entirely into financial industry, right? What AI does is that it automates a lot of processes, right? So, for example, if you have to open a bank account in a company like HSBC or Citibank, right? A whole lot of processes prior to checking your credibility. For example, your Aadhaar card or your credit scores, all of that are publicly available and can be accessed, and AI can access all that and do those ticks, which a regular clerk or a junior level executive was doing before, right? So all those things can be done, but the critical decisions still you have to pause there, right? And then take the help of AI as a support, as a co-pilot, right? Obviously, if you look at Google Maps, right? During our times, Chennai, Bangalore map was there at the back of my mind, right? For all of us, for most of us from our generation. But in today's generation, even to go to the next street, right? You need a map to navigate to the next street, right? So map has become your co-pilot, right? So that's the same thing with this thing. Don't have heavy reliance on AI like Google Maps or Google search, language translation. They are useful, but only so much, right? So my suggestion to make it better is embrace all these models as they evolve, right? With ChatGPT, Claude, and some of the newer newer prompt-based solutions that we are getting. We have to leverage those solutions, right? I mean, because they give you a first cut thing. Today a ChatGPT can even give you a first cut Excel sheet or a first cut presentation. But if you don't know what to do with that, right, you should know how to learn or how to leverage AI rather than blindly apply AI. Thank you, Arvind. McKenna, I hope I'm getting your pronunciation right. McKenna, I would be happy to mentor any entrepreneurs, though I wouldn't call myself a great entrepreneur, right? I was in a couple of startups before I started off as an entrepreneur, not as the founder of the startup, but as one of the leadership team members, right? But I would recommend a book by Steve Blank. He's an American entrepreneur. It's called the Startup Manual, right? Startup Manual has got everything. If you want to go systematically in building a startup, I would recommend Steve Blank's Startup Manual. It has got what are known as most of the entrepreneurs use that value maps, business value maps, canvas, it's called lean canvas, right? That's what people use.
I think that's a really lovely session. Thank you so much, Venkat. I think, from the interactions of the participants, it's very clear that they have been able to really understand
Yes.
all the concepts that you've shared. I also like the way you highlighted the importance of, nothing can replace our thinking, whether you're doing a machine learning model or you're going to use AI for finance. It's very important that we bring our understanding and then use AI to enhance or assist us, but not just leaving everything to AI. So those were very interesting points and taking time to answer these questions one by one. The really good thing about this program has also been that you've made it very industry relevant and bringing all your expertise of many years into the program. So we really thank you so much and look forward to more sessions from you. Thanks everybody for joining us today as well. Yeah.
Thanks, Shyamala. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Rakesh, especially for taking the time to do the nuts and bolts of this session.
Thank you.
Looking forward to meeting all of you next Saturday, same time, 4 p.m.
Thank
you so
you.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Yeah.